Okay, let's let it roll. Surprisingly, no message about video output. Whatever. Okay, ready and go.
Oh, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Saloon Podcast. I'm your host, Mirage, and I'm here with my partner burner, or co-host, whichever term you prefer, as usual.
Terminology. What is terminology? I have no stinking clue.
Yeah, and as previously mentioned in the last episode, this is a continuation of the SRB2 revisit, because there's quite a lot of content to cover. In the last episode, we spoke about the fact that, we spoke about we spoke about the first 4 zones in SRB2, and now we're here to speak about the final 3 in the main campaign, and possibly the bonus ones if we have the time to do so. Probably not, but we'll see.
Okay, so let's start this little party thing off by going back and watching some late 60s cartoons. Wile E. Coyote. The joke is Arid Canyon. The joke is we're going to Arid Canyon.
Yep. Anyways, Arid Canyon. This is a really good zone, and in fact, it's probably one of my favorites.
It's one of my favorites
Canyon
too.
Arid Canyon has some interesting history, because the thing about Arid Canyon is that it wasn't always just one zone. You see, the story behind Arid Canyon is that it was actually 2 zones. Formerly, they were known as Rocky Mountain Zone and Mine Maze, respectively, and they were merged into Arid Canyon later down the line in 2.0. And that's how Arid Canyon Zone came to be. But it wasn't until 2.2 where we actually got to see the Wild West, or sort of Mirage Saloon-esque influence begin to, like, manifest. So, that's when we actually started to see, Arid Canyon really taking its shape.
Yes.
Is when 2.2 released. But Arid Canyon is a pretty fun zone. Only downside Arid Canyon right now is that they kind of removed any references to mines and such, like Mine Maze and Rocky Mountain, or I think that's what it's called. But anyways, if you actually liked those 2 zones and enjoyed the fact that they had those influences, they're not present here in 2.2, but that's okay. The zone itself is still pretty cool, even irrespective of the fact that they're not present anymore.
Yeah.
But as for the zone itself is very interesting. I love how this zone looks.
Which is kind of a surprise, because usually canyon and desert type stages are not very well liked, especially when it comes to Sonic games, because you could have some okay ones like Sandopolis or Oil Desert from Sonic 4, and you could probably have stuff like, I don't know,
Mirage Saloon.
Yeah, you'd have Mirage Saloon, which is great, but for the most
which was actually also built up for Dust Hill, but yeah.
Yeah. And I played Dust Hill thanks to Sonic 2 Delta, which is I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of happy that it was removed from Sonic 2. So, but that's a story for another day when we eventually cover the Genesis titles. But Arid Canyon is just a very interesting zone. Like, I like the influences in it. I like the fact that it feels like an old Roadrunner cartoon, because there's a lot of references in there. There's tunnels there's painted tunnels that are actually just walls, and there's anvils coming down with dynamite, and it's super cool. I really like the old.
There's
like it's really like the influence that Roadrunner has on the zone. It feels so cool, and that's the immediate thing that I thought up of, and it's very clear that it's a very direct homage, and I like that a lot.
There's barrels of TNT. There's giant crates. There's giant Acme crates filled to the brim. Oh yeah, also presumably filled to the brim with TNT and such. There's all sorts of things. There's even dust devils in the stage, which have the gimmick of grabbing you and tossing you upwards. Well, they also toss you in whatever direction you're facing as well, which is really really nice. I like that gimmick a lot.
Yeah, those are
Um,
fun.
um, aside from as for the stage itself, both acts are pretty fun. They like I'd say the second act is a little bit more boring than the first act because the majority of the time that you spend is on the minecarts. But the minecarts at first are pretty fun, but they do get repetitive after you played it enough times. So I don't blame anyone for that. But I still find the minecart segment to be really fun in the second act.
Yeah,
But as like
I,
oh,
I enjoy the minecart segment too. It reminds me a lot of Donkey Kong Country, which is, I don't know if it's a direct homage, but I like it.
yeah, I like the minecart sections in Arid Canyon too, and I like the fact that it's a potential reference to Donkey Kong Country. Anyway, so right, as for Arid Canyon's overall level design, I feel as though it's pretty much about as good as the previous levels, aside from maybe like actually no, it's pretty much it's pretty much on par with the previous levels actually.
Yeah,
I don't have any gripes with it or anything like that.
no,
Oh, and in this act, you also get to, or in this zone, you also get to fight Fang as a boss. Forgot to mention that. My little spoiler there, but if you haven't played the game, but at this point, I don't really think it's much of a spoiler anymore because a lot of people have played it already. So,
yeah, and like
yeah,
I'm really happy that they gave a Soro Coyote as character the boss placement in the zone. And fun little data fact: since Arid Canyon was only one act in all versions of the game up until 2.2, this was the first time that the zone had a boss, and I'm so happy it was Fang.
yeah, I'm glad it was Fang too. Fang makes a better boss than just another traditional, oh hey, let's have Eggman come out again and or whatever. It's so redundant at this point.
And,
But
and the
thankfully that's not the case, and they decided to take a more unique route and actually throw in Fang the Sniper,
and
who we don't actually get to see very often.
and at the end of the boss fight, he gets hit by like a road sign, and that is so funny.
Yeah.
That's the kind of
Um
that's the kind of slapstick Tom and Jerry side cut comedy that I adore.
oh yeah, like getting watching Fang get smacked in the face by like a caution sign or a road sign is hilarious. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Arid Canyon. Red Volcano. This zone is really interesting too.
Yeah,
Before I actually go into depth as to how good the level design is in Red Volcano, there's a bit of history behind Red Volcano as well. Red Volcano in version 109.4 to version 1.09.4, yeah, I think that's the version. Red Volcano wasn't actually a part of the main campaign at first, much like how Arid Canyon and all the other Egg Rock weren't. But Red Volcano was still present in 109.4. The way how you'd access Red Volcano 109.4 is you talk to this character that goes under the name Red XVI, and you jump on their house about like 3 times, I think, and then they'll come out of their house and they will just curse you out, and then they'll go on to say, "Oh, I'm going to send you to hell for this." And then you end up in Red Volcano, which is pretty cool. I kind of liked the idea. It was a little Easter egg and joke, but it's fine that it's no longer present anymore.
because Red Volcano is a part of the main campaign in all other versions. It's I believe 2.0.
Yeah, 2.0. That's when they've added Red Volcano and Arid Canyon. Oh, and Egg Rock too.
Okay, that I was just gonna say, yeah, that makes sense. But going over the zone itself, it's a tad Interesting. As of this recording, which is SRB2 2.8, going on to be 2.9, we still haven't gotten that yet. This is the only zone
2.2.8.
2.2.8, yeah. Which is this is the only zone in the game to not have two acts, which is pretty interesting. Though that is probably going to change in 2.3. History will finally
It's
be made.
bound to change. It's bound to change in 2.3. It's going to change. It's guaranteed to change.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Level design itself is interesting. The level itself is probably the most linear I've ever seen this game be, and for once,
but that's probably a result of Tapeworm's level design philosophy. Either that or the fact that they didn't have much time to really finish it or whatever, and it was like rushed. Actually, I should mention this real quick, very quick. But I remember hearing that Red Volcano was actually a last-minute stage. It got finished just before. I believe it either got finished just before Castle Eggman Zone 2 did for 2.2 or after. I think it was before, though. I'm fairly certain it was just before. And they were still working on Castle Eggman Zone 2, and I think it was they were much closer to the final stretch this time around. So that's a little fun fact about Red Volcano, because if they didn't actually get finished Red Volcano, we still would have ended up with the level layout from 2.1. So they actually managed to get that done just in time, or very last minute. So yeah,
trivia for you guys. Study for this. This will be on the test.
Yeah. So there is that. But yeah, as Burner said, Red Volcano is very linear, but like I said, that's probably because of Tapeworm's level design philosophy. Either that or the fact that it was, I don't know, maybe it's... Actually, no, it probably was Dr. Tapeworm's level design philosophy, actually. But yeah, it's a very good zone. It's a little cheap in some cases because of the fact that there are lava falls from the ceiling that come down pretty quick. So
yeah, and
that might be a little...
Yeah, they force you into the lava pool below, and it's impossible to gather your rings again. Yeah, that's kind of cheap, but so long as you have good timing, it's not too difficult to deal with.
Actually, I wouldn't consider losing the rings in the lava to be cheap. The lava falls from the ceiling are cheap, but not the fact that you lose rings in the lava, because I think that motivates the player to get better and not fall in the lava as much as they would otherwise, So it's a little way to help reinforce you to not fall in, because typically players in Sonic games will fall in all the time and not suffer many consequences from doing that, because they actually keep their rings despite actually standing on top of a pit of lava. So in this, it's different.
That's a good argument, I feel. So
yeah, so it's I don't think it's really that cheap.
And plus, it's not egregious as Flame Core in Sonic 06. Heyo.
Yeah, but overall, Red Volcano is a good stage. It's a very, very good stage. It's also got bopping music too.
Fair.
But
have you already mentioned that this entire OST for SRB2 absolutely slaps?
Oh, we may or may have not mentioned that, but
we're gonna reiterate it to you guys in case we haven't already. It's good. So
back to very good.
Back to Red Volcano specifically. Yeah, it's a very linear zone, and it makes it a favorite among speedrunners, ourselves included. Because because I actually started trying to speedrun this game a little bit, and I've been enjoying it. It's become a particular favorite of Mirage here, because I know that he...
Oh yeah, I speedrun that zone constantly, all the time. That's one of my favorite zones to speedrun.
It's good.
But anyways, yeah, it's very good. Anyways, onto the final zone, or final zones, I should say. It's more like it's okay. Basically, I'm going to be talking about, or we're going to be talking about Egg Rock and Black Core. But the thing about Black Core, before I dive any further, Black Core was actually just Egg Rock. Black Core is just essentially Egg Rock Part 2. So
yeah,
we're going to be covering all 4 acts. acts.
Yeah,
Or
so
all 5 acts, actually, I think.
yeah, so yeah, that's just oh boy, I just realized we're talking about Egg Rock.
We're talking about Egg Rock and Black Core, respectively.
Yeah,
Um,
so and this is where things start taking a nosedive.
but thankfully, though, it's at the very end of the game. Nowhere else, and this is the only time you actually start to see things go downhill a bit.
Yeah,
But this isn't because of the fact that developers are at fault, because they
no,
didn't have enough time to update the stage. So, Egg Rock, oh boy, there's a lot to say about this zone. This zone is the least fun in the entirety of the game.
okay,
It has good music, but that's not enough to compensate for the fact that its design is bad. And I'll explain why. Its level design is unfair because of the sheer amount of things that it introduces to the player all at once.
yep,
It's too much for a newcomer to process when going through the stage. There's too many gimmicks. There's one gimmick after another, and after you just finish figuring out what the first gimmick was, you have to go through another segment with another entirely different gimmick, despite the fact that you've already spent time processing the first one. You have to go through another one, and then another one, and then another one, and so on and so forth.
we get that
And
it's
at that point, it just becomes tedious trial and error,
we get that
and
it's
it
the final.
sucks.
Yeah, we get that it's the final zone in the game. Like, holy cow, this is a little bit much. Cause like, a little level design lesson for all like the kids out there wanting to be aspiring level designers.
Don't do this.
This is gonna be a little blunt, but you have to tone back your gimmicks, because once the player figures out something else, that's when you expand upon it or introduce something else, and then at the end of the stage, you combine your gimmicks together to make something unique. That's how you make a good stage. And Egg Rock is
Basically,
not good.
basically, what you do to make a good stage, in my opinion, is that you make sure that you teach the player the gimmick enough to the point where they understand it to, a relatively decent extent until you move on to the next gimmick.
Yeah,
And even then, you still incorporate the first gimmick before you move on to the second, and you make sure that the player doesn't get hurt when you're teaching them the first gimmick, and that they're not really punished because they're still learning.
yeah.
So
See,
that's something else you have to keep in mind.
see,
You have to teach them one gimmick after another one at a time. You have to be very careful with it. And you
eventually,
have to make sure that they have enough time to process the first gimmick before they move on to the next.
yeah.
And
And
then, at that point, once they've got the time to process both gimmicks, you can throw both gimmicks in another zone. Or not in another zone, but in the same one later on. Because they had enough time to process both of those gimmicks and got, the time to understand how they work. Which at
yeah,
that point, you can actually do whatever you want. Because now they already know exactly what they need to do.
if you want
That's
to
why we're not fond of how Egg Rock works.
if you want to see a good demonstration on how gimmick introduction is done, see Galaxy Man from Mega Man 9. There's a grabber enemy that pushes you back, but it's in a very safe environment. You just let it grab you, and then it's a very non-threatening environment. And then after the player learns how that gimmick works, then they test you with it.
Exactly. That is what you should do in level design. That is how you not break the laws of level design. That is one of those rules that you just do not break. It's a huge no-no.
Yeah.
Anyways, aside from that, Egg Rock is also just it's really really unfun. It's like, even when you get to learn its gimmicks, they're kind of intricate in a way. Yes, I'm one of those people that got to play Egg Rock extensively, so I don't find it that big of a deal because I played it over and over again. But after realizing that to newcomers this is a pain, I could see what some of my friends were saying about it, and I completely agree. Egg
Yeah.
Rock is not a good zone. Despite how I've gotten really good at it, it doesn't change the fact that it's a poorly designed zone.
And hopefully 2.3 fixes that.
Yes, its difficulty curve is over the roof. It's
it's
not fair at all.
it's not even over the roof. It reached the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But after that, you also have Black, Black, or no,
Yeah, Black Core.
yeah, Black Core,
Black
yeah,
Core
right.
is
Black Core,
essentially just Act 1 is a race with Metal Sonic. And it's
second act, you actually get to fight Metal Sonic, and in the third act, you fight Brack Eggman, which is the giant robot thing from the OVA that's incorporated into SRB2's plot.
very cool.
But basically, in the first act, you race Metal Sonic, and you go through just a gauntlet of different gimmicks and such. Well, not really a gauntlet. You're just going through a race with Metal Sonic, which isn't that too difficult to do.
It's,
At least not up until you get to the gravity flipping bit. And that's a
yeah.
little tricky. But aside from that, it's not too bad. It's when the actual fight itself ensues, that's where it actually starts to become a problem.
Yeah,
The fight itself is not very good. I think the fight is a bit cheap, and that's probably because of the fact that I think Metal Sonic throws too much at you, and he sort of, like, every time you make an attempt to hit him, he sort of spins out of the way, and then you sort of have to make sure that you, like, when you jump into him, you don't thock, or, like, when you jump into him, you don't, like, overdo it and thock towards him, which causes you to ricochet back into a wall and down into a bottomless pit. You need to, like, make sure you don't do that. That's a lot of things to. There's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah,
because metal is not fair in, the second act. He's not fun. He's pretty tedious. Oh, and there's also a wall of electricity surrounding you, so there's that to keep in mind. It's like a boxing ring, but like I said, think of the little strips of rubber, well, not rubber, but like the rubber bands, like I said, they're strips of electricity.
Yeah.
And if you run into it, it shocks you. You get shocked, you lose all your rings. It's not very fun.
Yeah.
So
for any newcomers, I recommend.
Really,
for any newcomers just playing co-op, if you've already unlocked Fang, use him. Just spam the spin button.
Either you use him, or make sure that when you run into Metal Sonic, like when you try to hit Metal Sonic after he spins out of the way the first time, make sure you just charge up a spin dash for a little bit and then just like do a spin jump to hit him. That's what I always do typically.
Yeah. It's very much. It is doable with Sonic, but yeah, Metal second form, not fun.
Yeah,
but we end
the final boss,
Brack Eggman.
He's actually not that hard from what I remember. He's a little annoying to deal with, but he's not that hard.
It's definitely a beginner's trap, because the one thing that and I'm pretty sure a lot of other newcomers face when going after this guy is one of his attacks after is the lock-on attack. If you want to dodge this attack, you gotta hide behind one of the canisters, but it isn't very clear what exactly that means to a new time player. Because like I was very confused, like, oh hey, he's gonna hit me, what do I do? And it's kind of annoying, but whenever I figured it out, this fight is not as bad, but even still,
it's not. It's not fun doing that though. Yeah. But once you figure it out, it's a refreshing feeling.
It's just,
but the boss itself is
it's a beginner's trap, but that's what this boss is. Like, if you don't know what you're doing when you go into it, it will probably be one of the worst bosses you face. But once you do figure it out,
he's ironically better than Metal Sonic,
and that's kind of sad.
Yeah. So yeah, this guy, he's still really annoying and tedious, but nowhere near the same extent as Metal, because you probably won't have to deal with this guy as much. All he does is kind of walk around the arena. He like fires some missiles at you, which are also a little difficult to dodge because you're bound to get hit by at least one of them. They're not that hard to dodge, but they move pretty fast. So I mean, like, at first it's like a little difficult to dodge, but once you get the hang of it, you're like, okay, yeah, it's not a big deal. But they're still kind of annoying, especially when there's like no wall that surrounds the arena in like the later phase, and you just kind of inevitably fall into your inevitable doom into the bottomless pit. It's not fun at all.
Yeah. But I will definitely say this boss is definitely very satisfying to beat, because you get to hear one of the iconic screams from the OVA as Eggman's
Oh yeah,
child.
and the original Japanese dub, it's hilarious. That's satisfying. But yeah, what else? But to defeat this guy, all you have to do is you have to essentially lead him into like a lava fall, or not a lava fall, but a toxic fall, like a fall of toxic water, I think, because originally in 2.1 it was lava, but they changed that to toxic water. So in
Yeah,
2.2 anyways. So once you do that, it'll get rid of his little electric barrier, and then from there you'll be able to hit him several times. So you can hit him as many times as you want before that electric barrier goes back up again. And then once you do that, you just kind of wash, rinse, and repeat. Same thing. And then once you beat him, he screams. You capsule pops up, or not capsule, but like pod.
an escape pod, and then
Yeah, escape
you
pod.
escape
It pops up.
you escape the
You
egg
escape
rock.
Egg Rock. Yeah, and then that's the end of the game.
That's SRB2 for you, and this is a ride and a half of a game. It's definitely
Yeah,
the main campaign is great. Like we don't we the complaints that we mentioned are very noticeable. Like we each to each their own. I think that we all still have our unique set of
but
problems,
the
but overall the game
but the
is
majority
great.
of the game is more than like good enough to compensate for all those issues anyway.
And even then, like there is the potential that some of the issues that we talked about during in this 3-part episode will actually be fixed in another version. So
Hopefully, I can't make any guarantees as to whether or not they'll fix it, but I do
that
hope that they
that's
do actually do that.
that's why I said the potential. So,
Yeah.
but as it is
But
right
aside
now,
from that, that's
yeah,
yeah. As it is right now, it's a pretty solid game. But yeah, that covers essentially. Well, it basically just covers everything within the second half of vanilla SRB2. I suppose in the next part we'll be talking about mods and probably bonus content.
we're not done
If you
yet.
want to check,
Yeah, we're not done
yeah,
yet.
we're far
So
from done.
we got a lot more to discuss. So we'll see you all in the next
Very
one.
much so. Yep. See ya.